the list of being here.
All right, I'll call the meeting back to order at 6:09 p.m. The session of the General Council Conference. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Real quick, can I get somebody on Zoom to make sure that they can hear us and we can hear them?
Oh, if you'd like, I'll give that report and what we did.
I can hear you.
Looks like if we could just note for the public record that I'm back in
Thank you.
attendance, along with the other four counselors.
And as vice mayor, I chaired the closed session. The closed session was labor negotiations and direction was given by the council.
And the mayor recused himself from that meeting.
Correct. All right, thank you. We'll now enter into a general public comment for the evening. So if you have any items you'd like to make public comment on, please come to the podium, or if you're on Zoom, raise your hand. You'll be allotted 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Just reminding everyone, if you're here for an item that's on the agenda later, there will be a separate public comment on that item, if it's an action item. So Parks and Rec, lease extension, Butterfly Bridge, vacant and distressed building ordinance, historic district informational item, and planning commission appointment are the main items. And in our consent agenda, which would be included in this general comment, we have the check registry from February 26th
through April 1st,
through April 1st.
2022.
Yep, and the general plan annual progress report. So if you have anything that's not from one of those things I said first, please feel free to comment.
Mark Juarez, 5744 Dunsmuir Avenue. At the last meeting, or a couple meetings before, Peter Arth made several comments about the California Theater that were deceptive, incorrect, and I'd like to correct them. I was not able to do it at the time because of the setup of the thing. The California Theater, and Julian, I appreciate you suggested that Tim Holtz contact me in spite of emails and text messages. There was no response back in the time from the last meeting. In terms of comments that Peter Arth made, he referenced the California Theater blade sign as he courageously saved that sign from going down and being sold to the San Jose Theater. The sign itself is made from tin. It is so beyond repair and rotten that it cannot be saved. That was determined by the San Jose Theater. It has incandescent lights, which are completely inefficient. We had an opportunity to sell the sign to the San Jose Theater, and with that money could have it completely replicated exactly as it was, except made from aluminum and LED lights. It was blocked. This is why the sign will never be lit up. The marquee was hit by a truck. The cost of repairing it was $52,000. However, we were blocked again by Mr. Arth, and the results of that was that it cost $154,000, 2 years to repair, and Mikhail Stein, who repaired it, as well as the engineer and contractors, said that normally they would have charged much, much more. They've never seen such a difficult city to work with as the city of Dunsmuir, city council members and Mr. Arth. It was repaired 2 years. When I asked what we could do to repair this, they had threatened to fine me $1,000 per day until it was repaired, and $1,000 per day after it was repaired. When I asked, why is this, to Alan Harvey and his team with Mr. Arth, it was told to me that they wanted to take the theater away from me. And it was not literally about the marquee. When I said, do you want to buy it? He took $1 out of his pocket and set it down. Mr. Arth walked me down Sacramento Avenue, showing how he acquired all of his buildings, either through getting them condemned or getting them put onto the federal landmark, and then reversing it. And then reversing this. This is a violation of my rights. This is a violation of the rights of the city of Dunsmuir. This should not be allowed. This is not professional. Mr. Arth wants to continue to run a city council. This is terrible. And this is only one of two of very many examples of being constantly being blocked in the city. I want to make it good. We're putting every effort we can to make the city nice.
All right, thank you, Mr. Juarez. If anyone else would like to make a public comment, please come to the podium or raise your hand. I'll do in room first. Anyone? Oh, please, yeah, just come up to the podium so everyone can hear you on the microphone there.
Done with paper. We're only good.
All right, good.
I'll have to read fast. Hi, my name is Danny. I live in northern Dunsmuir in a community that is made up mostly of retired people. I've lived in Dunsmuir, Mount Shasta, McLeod. I was raised in a little town called Ballroom Mills, population about 1,200. It's an hour away. I'm no public speaker by any means. I come here tonight to talk about the lack of housing and rentals for the people that actually work here and want to live here full time. We chose to live here in the mountain town because we love the mountains, the streams, the lakes, and the wildlife, many more reasons. We did not come to Dunsmuir for pay, as it is generally lower in wages. This sacrifice was worth it. We have lived here in the rough winters and the bad fire seasons and continue to support our local economy. This is no vacation home for most of us. We are here for the long haul. These locals need places to live. The living opportunities have been turned into Airbnbs. Example, I was just outside my home just about a month ago. The water main was broken, so the city of Dunsmuir sent out one of their employees to shut it off. He arrived, I talked to him while he was working. The subject of living here in Dunsmuir came up. The poor guy was getting kicked out of his house for a short-term rental opportunity or Airbnb. This is not the first I've heard about this Airbnb takeover. I've heard about it from a handful of people. I have another local friend that is getting kicked out for a short-term rental as well. Neither of these people paid rent late or did anything wrong. The owner wanted to seize the opportunity for housing and renting in our area, which proves to increase revenue by 3 times as much. Is that how we treat our locals? Oh, hell no. No, it's not okay. We treat our locals and the way we treat our locals. That's why I'm speaking today. Both Mount Shasta and McLeod have done away with Airbnbs for a reason. Now it's time to help preserve what's left of Dunsmuir. Go look up Airbnb negative effect on mountain towns. The results go on forever, with really sad stories of the mountain towns going under. In order to combat these Airbnb negative consequences, these mountain towns now highly regulate, in some cases, but in most cases stop it. A story from a woman living in Winter Park, Colorado. I moved to Winter Park not knowing a soul, but it's down to earth, friendly, local vibe made it for an easy transition. Kind of sounds like someplace around here. I managed to lock down an apartment for $575 a month, no waiting list, no bidding war, no struggle. I put in the application and within a few days I was moving in. I was living the local lifestyle without a care in the world, paying my bills at $11 an hour. This was 2011. She was working at a ski shop. In 2018, that same unit is going for 3 times as much. The amount of housing,
30-second warning. Sorry.
the amount of housing at wanted ads far exceeds the amount of rent listings. She summarizes, when I moved here, there was plenty of rental options, but scarcity in jobs. In 2018, every business has a help wanted sign on its door. For those who come to vacation throughout the year, finding a place to stay, it couldn't be more painless with dawn of Airbnb and similar platforms. Finding a new home away from home is easier than ever. It just means local may not have a place to live. Dunsmuir is at the threshold. Changes need to happen now. I got a lot more to read, but if you're gonna give me 3 minutes, that's what I got.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. If there's any further public comment, please come up to the podium. Seeing none there, I believe we have a hand up.
Looks like Tim.
Yeah, Mr. Holt?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, I would like to second the previous gentleman's comments. I think that he's hit on a matter of great concern. I know of a number of people, who would like to move here, people who would contribute a lot to our community. I won't name anybody, but it really is a serious problem, and it does need to be addressed. That's all I'll say right now. As to Mr. Juarez's comments, he has complained in the past about lack of communication from me, despite the fact that we've had a number of fairly lengthy conversations with Mr. Juarez about Dunsmuir Live, about getting the California Theater open and so forth and so on. those conversations will continue. I did get a text message from him this morning. I've not had a chance to respond to it yet, but Mr. Juarez, there will be continuing communication. So you can rest assured on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holt. All right, any further general public comment for this evening? And just a reminder for people in the future, a couple of our commenters, this is to address council, not other members of the public or individuals in the town. We appreciate keeping to that format. Councilman Art.
Mr. Mayor, even before the public comment tonight, I was going to request that on the consent agenda, item 11B, the general plan annual progress report, be taken off of consent. I want to have a conversation with the staff and with Council Member Lucchese on our city's failure to meet its housing goals in every single economic sector from low income to high income.
Yeah.
So, clarification?
So he's requesting to take off 11B, it would become 14F.
I was wondering if we could take it off consent, table it, so we can get a little bit more information.
That's what he's saying.
No, he didn't
Well,
say
I know,
table it.
I actually,
Again, I
Are
think
you ready to go into it tonight?
I think we should start.
Okay.
I'm happy to take it off consent agenda and place it as item F of new business.
I'll second that.
All right.
you don't need a second for consent agenda.
Well, make sure for the record.
All right. All right, let's move into staff and council comments. We start with Sergeant Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've prepared the stats for February based on the fact we didn't have a council meeting last month. This March's stats will be at the next council meeting as is typical. So the month of February 2022, the city of Dunsmuir, the sheriff's office completed 422 hours of service in the city of Dunsmuir. We had 169 calls for service, down a little bit from last year at 183. We took 12 cases, and that number was actually the exact same as last year. We only had 7 traffic stops as opposed to last year we had 26. 2 citations were written for traffic. There were 2 felony arrests and 1 misdemeanor arrest within the city limits of Dunsmuir in February. For the most part, the crimes have been trending down. They weren't awful to begin with, but make me a liar right off the bat. We had 1 extra burglary for the month of February. We had 3 as opposed to 2 last year. But our thefts are down slightly. We had 3 reported thefts, and the year before it was 5. The assaults remain the same at 1. We only had 1 mental health related call this year. Last year it was 4. The school checks, we've exponentially grown on the school checks. We did 42 that month.
Is that still related to COVID, or is that related to COVID, or is it just a standard school checks?
You know, that's a valid point that I didn't take into consideration. To be honest, I was just in the zone clicking away on my computer.
It's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
And I thought, wow, 42 compared to the year before at 11. So for whatever reason, there's nearly 4 times as many school checks taken.
It was requested by council to have more of that sort of presence a couple 2 years ago. So we appreciate you guys moving in that direction.
Yeah, I thought it looked great to me. I didn't even take into account COVID. It seems like that's everything you think about is related to COVID these days. Security checks, 24 of them. We had 5 disturbing the peace calls versus last year we had 9. 2 alarm calls, no child abuse. Last year we had a traffic collision. This year we didn't. No stolen vehicles. We had 4 domestic violence incidents versus last year there was 5. And our citizen contacts are way up this year as opposed to last. We had 18 proactive engagements with citizens, and what that equates to is not just saying hi to somebody at the market. That's, you know, the strange looking person walking down the road at 2 a.m. That's who we're contacting. That would be considered a radio type call and help with the subject. So compared to 7 the year before, we conducted 3 welfare checks. Last year we did 9, and we had 2 trespass issues. The notable case for the month of February was, I touched on it at our last meeting. It happened February 2nd on the 5,000 block of Florence Loop at that strip of apartments. There's 2 gentlemen that live at their house. They left the door unlocked so that a friend could come by that they'd anticipated. When they arrived, there was a male transient, Matthew Sequenza, and his dog had let themselves in. While in there, he stole some of their jewelry and was helping himself to some peanut butter. Deputy Decker arrived on scene, contacted and detained Mr. Sequenza. During a subsequent search of Sequenza, she located property that was identified by the residents as belonging to them. So he was hooked into our jail on burglary charges, possession of stolen property, and he had some methamphetamine and other pharmaceuticals with him. So he's booked for those as well.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, question?
I'm not sure, when we last year outlawed fireworks, how, is that still in effect? Because I want to make sure, I'm hearing people lighting off fireworks, and I want to make sure you realize that's against our ordinances now.
Yeah.
So if you get a call on fireworks,
Now, I had some gunshots the other night.
well, I'm just
You
saying
shoot all
over
the guns you
time.
want, just no fireworks.
Well, no, you can't shoot in city limits either. Please don't shoot guns in city
Yeah, I
limits.
was actually contacted a parolee at the Amtrak just the other night, and right at dusk, and I could hear some shots being fired. It took a minute to figure out where on the ridge, but the guy's actually just out of the city limits, and he has a range, but I was able to verify that he's shooting in a safe direction.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring it up, and I'll make this very quick, I just want to make sure you realize that we have an ordinance that outlaws fireworks, and if people that moved in here don't know about it, whatever, we want to make sure you and your team are aware of that, you know, with the concern over forest fires and so, okay?
Okay.
And I think it might be a resolution. We might
It's a
It is.
1-year ban though.
Yeah.
We do,
Yeah,
we
so-
renew it on a calendar basis.
Yeah,
or,
so it's
on
still
an
in effect
annual.
1 year right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
I believe we adopted that last year in June.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I just want to say I've been hearing from our code enforcement officer and acting city manager that cooperation with the sheriff's department when it comes to our code enforcement efforts has been going very smoothly. So I really thank you for that.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
No further questions? Good.
Thank you.
Acting city manager?
All right, yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out that there will be multiple projects, construction projects going on this year, so please be careful of them all. 2 of them are city related, 2 of them are not. I can't remember the 4th one, but one of them is the bridge deck on I-5 that will be getting replaced. So just, we're gonna keep announcing it as time goes on, but there will be traffic patterns and all that kind of stuff for the bridge deck. That's a Caltrans project.
So wait, reiterate. The southbound will be on the other side, Sharon, like we did before.
Yes,
It's gonna be
we'll be able
crazy.
to provide more details, but
Okay.
essentially, yes, the southbound
Heads up,
lanes.
It's coming.
Well, and it will close part of Tallendelli Park for most of the summer,
And that too.
unfortunately.
We
Yes.
had last year or the year before, we had Caltrans come in and give us a public briefing. Can we make sure we get that again on this one?
Yeah, we can definitely try that. And I think they'd probably most likely want to reach out as well. So we'll,
Make sure we close that loop though.
excellent. So then our 2 city projects that are going on, we're going to restart, yes, you Ortiz, restart the water main project. So that's replacing a lot of the water mains. That'll get restarted, so be careful of traffic patterns there. There will be some on Dunsmuir Avenue. There will be a few overnight stoppages of water. So we're going to plan to do that overnight. But just to prep everybody.
I believe the contractor that we have hired for that is going to be notifying people that will be impacted currently.
Right. Yeah. If you have a direct impact with your water service, you will get a direct notification. Excellent.
So it's not a back and forth. So we'll have Blake available later to answer questions.
Yeah, and if anybody does have any questions, on the off chance they have questions, just feel free to contact me and come into City Hall. The other project is the downtown tank project we'll be starting. There won't be too many traffic issues with that, but just to let you know that the water tank will be starting construction. So those are
How many years?
a lot.
Cool.
Yeah. So the second thing I wanted to note was sad for staff, but Tanya has moved on to a new job. So if you come into City Hall, you will not see Tanya's wonderful face, but you can go elsewhere. You can contact her about where she went, and she'd be happy to tell you if she wants. And then lastly, okay, I'll just go for it. So I'm pleased to dispense the following info through a joint effort.
Please don't.
Blaze, sorry, okay, bad puns. So you don't want to hear any puns tonight, Juliana? No, just to say, Blaze One is our first commercial cannabis retailer that has opened up.
Oh, officially.
It has opened?
No, it hasn't opened yet, but they've
Well,
received their official permit. So
Right
they
on.
are the first licensed commercial cannabis operation for retail.
So it begins.
So I wanted to say that. I'll just send it to you in an email.
Thank you. I'm
And that's
sorry.
it.
You can go with your puns. It's fine.
All right, thank you, Manager. Councilman Kessler.
Um, I would just, a couple things. The Rotary in Dunsmuir, we're putting on a golf tournament. It's April 30th, and it's not too late if you want to get a sign. Come see me. It's $50, and the money goes to the Dunsmuir Elementary School for the backpack program. We send our kids home with food on Fridays so they don't come to school starving to death on Mondays. It's sad, it's true. It's what we got to do. I'm behind this program 1,000%. I encourage you people to do too. They're also involved, the Rotary's also involved with a lot of programs. We're going to be helping out with Dunsmuir, with the Brew Fest. We're helping out with the softball tournament. So if you guys want to support Dunsmuir Rotary, you can find any Rotarian, talk to them, and they'll tell you how. I'm looking forward to some events that are coming up. We've got Railroad Days and Soapbox Derbies. So, being the godfather of Soapbox, I have a saying, let my people roll. So we're working on everything we can do, but I'm trying to get some hay bales. If anybody knows anybody that can donate hay bales so that we can protect, or straw, alfalfa, I don't care. But we want to line the streets instead of tires, so that the kids can't hit the curbs. That's the idea, that's the goal. I need help. If anybody knows a rancher or something, please contact me. I'm just honored to be part of the Rotary, I gotta tell you that. So, and looking forward to some events. Brewfest is happening, Steampunk, Railroad Days, the Magic Metal in the Mountains. It's so good to everybody coming back out, and you know, it's happening again. There's a couple other notes that I would like to mention, a couple of dates. April 9th, this Saturday, there will be a memorial at the park, the Botanical Gardens, for Sten, who passed away. Sten had the hamburger stand by the pool. The dude gave out like 1 million hamburgers to all our lifeguards and our kids. He was a good dude, so his service will be there Saturday. And then, if you guys have ever seen Me and My Soapbox Derby, that guy, that old guy at the end, his name was Paul, but we all called him Wally. He passed away, and his service will be May 14th. And good dude. Rest in peace, bro. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman Kessler. Councilman Arth.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, colleagues, members of the public. I have two items. The first deals with the unsafe sidewalks and curbs in the downtown area of the city of Dunsmuir. I have a dear friend who rolled into Dunsmuir in 1949, about to celebrate his 84th birthday. And he was going to join me for dinner at Cafe Madalena on a Sunday night. It was dark. He tripped on the sidewalk. He fell. He shattered an elbow. He broke 3 ribs. Tony Kanji and the emergency team did a beautiful job of getting him up to the hospital in considerable pain. And it kept him from walking for a time. He had to go into acute care. And it will not shock me if he files a claim with the city of Dunsmuir as a result of his injuries. If I go into the Cobra Lily tonight, I will see about 8 linear feet of sidewalk stacked up like cordwood, all painted red, all busted off the curb. No curb whatsoever. If we all took a little walk up to Children's Park, and as I understand, we now own Children's Park, you'll see the relatively new pavement all heaved up because of the trees. So there are 1/2-inch heave points at every joint as we invite children and old people and people waiting for a bus to congregate in that area. And I brought this up briefly with the interim city manager, and he said, well, that's the responsibility of the property owners. Well, how's that working? Because the liability is going to reside with the city. The budget document we spent so much time on, and it's a beautiful budget document, has a section that deals with goals, improve infrastructure, including sidewalks, and a budget that goes with those goals. But when I look in the budget, I can't find anything for sidewalks. It seems like what we have done over the years is have an aversion to dealing with the city's liability for the trees that ruin the sidewalks. We under budget, so all we ever do is try to grind down the worst of the lips, which I'll tell you, if you're an investigator or a lawyer, it just helps make the case that the city refuses to have safe sidewalks or curbs. So I think, yes, when Dunsmuir really didn't care about its infrastructure, its water infrastructure, its sewer infrastructure, its streets, and its sidewalks and its curbs, that was a different time. But I don't know whether this merits a referral to our public works director, a referral to the budget committee, but all we're doing is trying to move away from the excess liability that the city has faced under our insurance pool program. We're just trying to get back to where we're not an extra assigned risk. And these incidents are going to be very, very expensive, besides discouraging people from coming to Dunsmuir. So I hope we could see this not just drop into the atmosphere, but that actually we will do a survey of the downtown sidewalks and curbs. You can look at the tree right behind Councilmember Lucchese. It's heaved up the sidewalk 1.5 inches. But because nobody sees it or cares, there it sits. So I would like to see a survey of the downtown sidewalks and curbs, an inventory of worst first, a budget to repair them rather than having citizens get injured. And that's my comment on that issue. The other is, I did notice at our meeting that Councilmember Lucchese had asked for an RFP on banking services, and I wondered if we've moved forward on that or not.
No, we're still working on it at the finance committee meeting, and I can give an update on that shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Art. Councilwoman Lucchese?
I'm going to be very brief. We have a lot on the agenda tonight. I do want to touch on your point about sidewalks. That's included in the transportation study that we just got the grant for. And so the RFP for the transportation consultant is out now through the local government commission, which rebranded themselves to something new.
Civic Well.
Thank you, Civic Well. So we are working on that. So we are
That's
getting.
good news.
Yep. So we have a grant for that. That's gonna happen this
Because we don't
summer.
want people getting hurt.
What, is the timeline such that as we roll into summer, we wait for the grant or we actually fix sidewalks?
No, we actually have the grant for the study, but also I'm not sure what our situation is on the STIP funding this year, the state transportation
You can't
improvements.
find in our budget the amount allocated for repairing sidewalks or curbs.
Well, Blake could probably return with what we're getting for STIP funding this year and that.
Yeah, STIP funding or Fund 59, gas
So-
tax, 58 also, gas tax.
But it's not broken out. I looked.
Okay,
We'll find it.
we can do that full agenda item on that for sure.
But just to let you know, we are working on the study.
And we did, I don't know if
Can
it
we
was
have
with Mark
Councilwoman
Brannigan or
Lucchese
whatever, but we
continue?
did, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, can we have Councilman Lucchese continue with her comments?
Oh, yeah.
Just because,
There is a fund that is allocated to each city called the PLHA program. The city of Dunsmuir receives it and it goes to unhoused programming. We don't really have the capacity and capabilities, so I've been talking to the county about funneling it through their social services department that is more equipped to dealing with those funds. So I may request an item on the next agenda to pass a resolution to funnel our PLHA dollars. I can't remember the acronym today. I'm very tired this week. I work at the city of Wairika and it's been a week, to say the least. So I'll touch base with Blake about that, but each city is allocated a certain amount of money to help with the unhoused situation. And if we don't allocate our 2019 allocation at this point, we will lose those dollars. So I will follow up with the mayor and yourself with what that entails so that we can at least funnel that to an organization that's working on permanent homeless shelters in the county of Siskiyou.
Who's the contact there?
Dr. Sarah Collard. Not behavioral health, it's health and human services.
Yeah, so Madeline, is she involved in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and the only other thing is, I appreciate public comments, but I don't appreciate personal attacks on the council members. I understand if you have history with people. I understand if our comments annoy you or upset you. This is not the venue to have that conversation. So please be respectful when you come up to the mic. Thank you.
thank you, Councilman Lucchese. Vice Mayor Deutsch.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I think everybody in the city totally agrees with what you had to say about not only Airbnbs, but the general state of housing. We've been trying to deal with it. What we've been able to do recently was to have a task force that at least came up with a set of regulations and processes to keep the Airbnbs in place. I know somebody, maybe somebody you know, that just is in that same situation, so I do totally feel for you, but it's a tough nut to try and crack, and we're continuing to look at it. I feel just as bad as anybody about the lack of housing in our city, but our hands are tied. That doesn't mean we're not going to continue to work it, but we will. I do want to point out that for people that are new, that the reason we have it set up so that there's a time for public comment, there's no back and forth, and then after that, there's no back and forth. So it's just the protocols we have under. So that was the reason we don't take questions during the middle of the meeting. So it's part of our protocols. I do want to just bring up one other quick thing. The Easter egg hunt that used to be put on by the chamber has worked to pass it over to a combination of the resource center and the Rotary. So there will be an Easter egg hunt on the Saturday before Easter, not Thanksgiving. And so there's a couple of families that are with children that are going to help put that on. If you're interested in helping with that in any way, you can talk with the resource center, particularly Stephen Bryan. He's kind of running it right now. So that's something coming up. And yeah, I'll leave the report on the chamber to when I come up on committee report. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilman.
One more thing, Mr. Mayor. The Resource Center has a new website. Former Mayor Bryce Craig, he put together, through his video place, they put together a really neat website. And it breaks down the garden and what they're all about. And I encourage you to leave. You'll be proud. You'll be proud of Dunsmuir. Just check out the website. Thanks.
All right, I'd like to congratulate Blaze One for meeting all their conditions of their permit. It's really exciting to have another business joining Dunsmuir and to being diversified in our economy that way. I look forward to congratulating them on being open. I also wanted to remind everyone, I know many people will probably say it tonight, but the pool is in need of lifeguards. I know everyone here in Dunsmuir would like a longer pool season and more flexible hours for those that work or other things. We do need community members who are physically able, you have to pass some tests, to be certified as a lifeguard. I know Councilman Kaiser has been a big part of projecting awareness on this, but we just need a deeper roster of certified lifeguards going forward to get the sort of schedule we want year in, year out. So if you know of anyone who might be interested, get in touch with Mike Rodriguez. Later. All right, and then I'm deeply supportive. I was approached on the unhoused grant. It looks like all the cities in Siskiyou County are allocated a small amount, and they probably can't put it all together. So it looks like pooling it to some source where they can actually utilize it makes more sense.
Reiterate that, so you're saying that we're gonna.
It'll come back to council, but there was a pool of funding specifically for homeless or unhoused. It can't be used for people even at risk of being homeless. It has to be like homeless, given out to each jurisdiction based on population, et cetera. We can defer ours to another jurisdiction, like the county or another city, and pull it all together and do one project that could service all the towns. And that might make more sense because we don't have enough funds to get anything going on our own. But together we might be able to do it in one of the cities and work together on that.
So it stands for permanent local housing allocation, and we will continue to receive those dollars each year. So we can, if next year we could be better prepared if we did have a particular project.
And it's just a good example of regional cooperation. Maybe on another project, like we were the lead agency on the
Makes sense.
Microenterprise.
Yeah, microenterprise grants, similar to that. And then I do want to thank the public commenter coming here for the Airbnbs. I think it's really good to come here and talk to City Council, democracy in action. I'd also like to say that please keep our agendas on your periphery, because we had a number of public meetings. I think there were a total of 9 with maybe more actually, but between the workshop and then back to council where we really hashed it out. And we even had some workshop style meetings where you could come and really participated. Where we are now is the result of a year-long effort, a lot of citizens' part to do something for the Airbnb, but it's definitely still in the works. In that committee, I think there's been talk of resurrecting it to monitor the new data we'll have. But it's only been since January 1st that we've had true regulation of it. So there's been real progress, at least on that front. But I encourage you to stay involved, and next time a committee comes up.
And we all feel you.
That piques your interest, we'd be happy to have you serve on it.
And we did request to revisit the item within 1 calendar year because we did not put a maximum number of licenses out in the city. I wanted to, I think a couple of us thought about it, but we wanted to register everyone first to see how many and then find an appropriate balance.
And
so we'll be revisiting that.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity to it, but we need more voices involved.
Yes.
So thank you. I think we should move forward into committee reports for this evening. I know Councilman Deutsch, you've got a couple.
Yeah, I'd like to report on the chamber. They had their next meeting last night, and there's really an incredible amount of energy. They've got a couple of new members. Ahmed Toski is the board director. Pastor Jack is another one. They are working on their calendar. They're getting volunteers lined up. They're going through the whole process. So between Cindy Foreman and Luann Weigel, 2 strong women, they basically sat down and said, we're going to do this. And they pulled the team together. It was a energized meeting. And I believe the chamber is back. I made a joke last night. I was like, there was a period where it was dead chamber walking. It was hard to know if it would ever come back alive, but there's a lot of energy. And they're actually talking about making a policy that they come and report to the council once a month and just give an update on what's going on and communicate. So they're planning a mixer. I guess it's later on in April. I'll get the date out on that. But it's going to be at the Wheelhouse. And so their goal is to really get to talk to each of the different businesses, get them involved, and develop the relationship. So I'm really optimistic about the movement that's going on, and they're excited about being able to come and continue to work with you and keep you appraised. And they did put together for the community development a full plan with all the numbers and everything, which would be going to the Finance Committee, but they did take that seriously, and I made it clear that council would like to know what you're spending your money on, what your plans are, and how it fits together, and that's what they address. So I'm looking forward to it, getting to the Finance Committee and then moving beyond that. That's all.
Thank you so much, Councilman Joyce. A quick question, is there anything from the transportation work?
I put in a paper to the process. So we have a company that's developing the new bus route system, and I put in a paper kind of describing the situation we face in South County and laid out all the challenges. You know, for instance, if somebody is if somebody's disabled or senior citizen doesn't have a car and they have to get to a grocery store in Dunsmuir, they can't do that. The system is designed specifically just to get people to the county seat. And the response I got from Angie Stunbaugh, who's the transportation manager for the county, was that she was excited about it. And so as part of the process, then when that company gets together, I'll send a copy of that around to everybody so you get a chance to look at it.
And I believe the LTC is meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday, I think. Yeah. We didn't have a meeting last month, but so that's the plan there. And you know, basically the point is that this whole South County in a way is one large community that has to be able to get to Dunsmuir and then to Mount Shasta if you have a bank in Weed. And so hopefully they'll understand that it's not just a matter of making tweaks to the existing system, but coming up with a new model that'll work for the local citizens and not just for people getting to the county. That's all.
Thank you.
Good job, Bruce. Really, good job, man.
Yeah, deeply appreciate your involvement there. Other committee reports?
We had a finance committee meeting, so we're continuing to talk about banking services with the city of Dunsmuir, talking about what we would like to include in the RFP. The treasurer and Blake, the acting city manager, are working on it some more, and we kind of came up with a couple of ideas. We reached out to a couple of banks just to get some preliminary information on the services that could be provided so that we have a better idea of what could go into the RFP. We are getting closer to drafting that, but we haven't prepared one yet.
Thank you.
But yeah, one of the things we were talking about is whether we want to require in the RFP if they have a standard location, so take over the US Bank building, but we felt that that was a separate item outside of the city's personal banking services, but we would like to see that. But it would not be in the RFP, but it would be something we'd like to promote on the side, is getting an actual bank to establish an institution in the city. We also did a preliminary review of the budget schedule for 2022 through 2024. Blake is going to bring that back to us at our next meeting.
Yeah.
And then we briefly talked about the update for the community promotions funding. So typically each year we budget out about $55,000 that we're going to spend of those dollars. Council can choose to raise that, lower that. Finance committee will discuss and see if we want to recommend raising or lower, or stay the same. But just to say right now, we have about 89,000 worth of requests right now. So we will either need to cut some people's requests, or we will have to be comfortable with expanding that allocation for those programs. But just to let you guys know that we do have a large influx of requests this year by new applicants, which is nice to see. So we'll be talking about that, I think, at our next meeting.
Juliana, with regards to the chamber, they put in a number, and that number also includes the 7,000 that we had identified as part of the COVID. So we were using that as a trigger to put that in. So the actual money they're asking for from community development would be 13, and the 7 would be from the COVID.
So we didn't talk about anyone in particular.
I just want to let you know ahead of
Yeah,
time.
so I think as long as they
We
have that in
just
their
talked
application. So those are still open, I believe. We're accepting, no, we're closed. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I wasn't sure. So we will be returning, quick clarification from council. Were you expecting repeat requesters to present to the full council or just to the finance committee? Because I think we asked about that in the committee meeting. My understanding is you wanted a presentation on how the funds were used to the full council.
I defer to the mayor who created this monster.
Well, the process was just through finance committee.
Okay.
They're allowed to make public comment in favor in that sense, but to not have presentation after presentation. We did specifically ask that both Parks and Recreation and the Chamber come back with some clarity on their financials, how the money was spent, et cetera. But both are already kind of in the works as far as that goes. I think we should still work with those two to clarify the situation, but I think Finance Committee can.
Yeah, Finance
recommend.
Committee came up with, I believe, 4 questions for our repeat askers that we wanted clarification on, that they had to fill out in addition to the application.
And I think we had that.
Yeah.
When we created it as well.
Okay, I just wasn't sure, I just wanted to
No,
make sure.
no,
we were
well,
clear
I
on that.
appreciate you raising it, and my perspective, having done a lot of committee work up to the decision makers, is you really count on the committee to do the hard work, to hold the feet to the fire for everybody requesting money and be fair. What are you spending the money on and how important is it? And that drives, are we gonna stay as we recover from COVID at 55, or are there worthy new and recurring projects? But it makes it so much easier on us.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was designed to have Finance Committee really engage with the process and recommend based upon the light of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
And you have citizens on your committee, which is very
We
important.
do have an opening, and we do need to
Yeah.
either clarify with Len if he's gonna be reapplying, or we might have 2 openings. So if you are interested in being on Finance Committee, we have openings.
It's
That brings
fun.
up a point on the DPAC. They seem to have the opinion that the terms that were listed for the members are a limit. And that,
No.
and I want to make that clear, and
They are
I've
not.
told that to Linda, that if somebody has their term expires, they're totally free to re-up. So
Yep.
I'll make sure they get that.
Yep.
All right, yes. All right, thank you. Any further committee reports? All right, and then the executive search for a new city manager is in process. Nothing new to report at this juncture.
Do we have a target date?
I'd say that's preliminary at this point. I hope to have council engage with the firm before the next meeting, but I don't know if they'll be able to meet that deadline.
Thank you.
You get Nancy.
All right. No more committee reports. Let's move on to item 10, approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2022.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously. Let's move into the consent agenda for this evening. We have the check registry from February 26th through April 1st.
It's been amended.
It's been amended to not include item B, so.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
All right, motion by Keisler, second by Deutsch. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. We have no public hearing nor old business for this evening. So this brings us into item of new business. Item A, Planning Commissioner appointment. We have 1 spot available on the Planning Committee and 3 applicants: Lance Anderson, Michelle Feasby, and Michael Sanchez. Thank you, everyone who applied.
And I did just want to make a note as you're flipping through your agenda packet that we've been discussing. And so current makeup of the Planning Commission is a 7-member board. The makeup of the board is within city limits or within the sphere. There's been concern that potentially if a majority are outside, well, like within the sphere, then there could be some things we may not want that. And we possibly can't even have
I
that.
believe in the government code, it does not allow you to have a majority
You
of
can't.
people outside.
Right,
Okay.
she's right.
It has to be a majority.
So right now we're at 3 and 3. Okay, so there's 3 within city limits, 3 in the sphere. Of the applicants, which I could potentially we need to verify as well, but according to what we've done, our research, Lance is within, right? Michelle is just out, I think. She's on, right, Michelle? Just out, okay. So that's Catherine, I think. And then Michael on Gillis is within.
And then did we look up when the
So-
terms of the other members are?
Yes, there's current members are through 2022, June of 2022.
Okay.
So there potentially will be some more coming very shortly.
So if you guys don't get tonight, please reapply. Just your interest, show your interest, and
Yeah.
we'd love to have you. You know, it's what, people that have the interest in what makes it happen, so.
Well, I'd just like to point out while we're on the subject here, for people that might not quite understand what's happening, is even though practically speaking, we have a city that goes from Manfredi's and the sewer plant all the way up to North Dunsmuir, the arbitrary line where it turns into county is at the cemetery and the lower bridge there by Shearer Avenue. So a lot of what people think is Dunsmuir is not officially Dunsmuir, but is in the county. Someday that may change. They're already on our water and sewer, but there's no immediate movement towards annexation now. So we do typically in our committees allow for sphere of influence people to be on them because many people that live down there aren't aware that they aren't in the jurisdiction of Dunsmuir and can't vote. But that's also why you don't get the good snow plowing until much later when the county shows up.
So there are 3 spots that are going to be opened June of 22, June of this month.
And some of those are outside and inside, or?
Yeah, oh, shoot. I think there's a mix.
Okay.
Could we possibly go ahead and make changes in advance of that today?
No, we would have to wait till their term is up because we
Oh.
need to
Yeah.
know if they're going to
reapply,
reapply as
right.
well.
Well, thank you so much for bringing up that consideration, Blake. We'll take it into account, but let's have the applicants come up and introduce themselves. I really appreciate each one for applying. We start with Lance.
Lance is one of my neighbors.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, Shasta.
Unfortunately, my voice doesn't work very well, but
Lean into the microphone, it'll help.
does that work
Yes, sir.
better? Okay. My name is Lance Anderson, and I've lived in Dunsmuir or owned a home here for 32 years, 33, I think. And I also started Cafe Madalena with my ex-wife, and that has continued to flourish and move on. What else can I tell you? I've commuted from San Francisco most of the 33 years that I owned the house here. So I think that gives me a perspective of that could be quite valuable. I wasn't really prepared for this. So
No worries. Thank you so much, Lance. We appreciate it and appreciate your application. We have Michelle.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michelle Beesby. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present my application to you and make my introduction. So I grew up in Dunsmuir from a year old to about 20. I went to Castella, Dunsmuir Elementary, Mount Shasta High School, ultimately Golden Eagle. I was away for 10 years. I owned my own bike store with my partner in Santa Cruz, California. So we did bike repair and sales. We had that for about 5 years. I went to school for interior designer and architecture. So my background was in designing and doing the construction documents for housing developments for multiple larger housing development clients and condos, apartments, and elderly care facilities. I currently work in land development for private commercial projects, and my projects range from Bakersfield to Reading and everything in between. So I get the experience of seeing many different planning departments and how they do things, what they require of clients, what kind of improvements they're looking for in their cities. So I feel that with my background and history and my roots here in the Dunsmuir and really caring about this town, and then my professional experience, I would be a great candidate to be part of the planning commission. And so Thank you, and I appreciate the time.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. We appreciate you being here tonight. Michael Sanchez.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great, and can you see me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me attend via Zoom today. So yeah, my name is Michael Sanchez. I'm also a longtime local here. I grew up in Dunsmuir as a youth and returned about 4 years ago after receiving my bachelor's. And with my wife and my son, and now my 4-week-old who was born right here at home in Dunsmuir. I'm a homeowner and I work for a solar installation nonprofit that serves the majority of the state of California. And then, yeah, so I mean, a little bit more about my background or credentials. Can I go into that now?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Okay. Yeah, so some of my qualifications I think are, well, number one, that my job is my paid job is, you know, focused in community building and workforce development, and as well as sustainable energy through solar. My title is program manager, and that requires me to work with utility districts and authorities having jurisdiction, HJs, to obtain permits in order to build solar systems. So some of this might require me to review zoning and community development standards. I assess site plans as well as electrical diagrams. And I pretty regularly interpret development regulations, and then also just like state guidelines and policies for permitting applications, but also incentive applications that we receive to actually build the systems or fund the systems and serve low and moderate income Californians. Semi-recently, you know, I organized in my neighborhood to garner feedback on a recent timber harvest plan that was bordering our neighborhood, and just engage the community and help inform neighbors of the plan and let them know that there's a public comments period and they can participate in that. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that, you know, I have a vested interest in the city. You know, I am invested in this community very much so, and I have an interest in planning and implementation. And yeah, I have an interest in establishing a safe and family and youth-friendly environment for my community.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate that perspective and input. Is there any,
Thank you.
all right, really appreciate it.
Congratulations on the
Zooming in with
kid.
us. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Dave. Sorry, Councilman Dave.
Are there any thoughts? So we only have one vacancy, and I guess first and foremost, are we going to consider the sphere of influence issue? Is that important?
Yeah, so I think we do need to. We need to experience, we need to, yeah, judge that. So, Michelle, so sorry. But please apply
We do
again.
encourage you to put another application in for
Please don't
June.
go
Oh,
anywhere.
yeah.
Please.
Oh man, that creek, that county line, my property line is on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think we get annexation through in time, but
I'm
look forward
like
to you.
one house over from that line.
yeah.
So we do appreciate you bringing all your experience and skills, so keep this in mind down the line.
Couple months, June, we have more openings. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or if you have any interest in the finance committee, there is a position available there too. Anyway.
We're fighting for talent.
All right. That being said, we have two candidates, Michael Sanchez and Lance, and thank you all three, of course,
Thank you.
for being interested in this. so necessary.
I know Michael was here with us last time. We had an appointment and we did not choose him for that. I believe that's when we were, we appointed, can't remember her name, but she works for Caltrans Complete Streets.
Oh,
Chrissy.
Yeah, Chrissy, thank you.
I
Yeah.
remember us mentioning it at the time.
So I do really appreciate your continued interest. I think that shows a level of dedication to the position and moving forward. I really appreciate both of your perspectives. I think we're gonna need a lot of different type of people to move forward as a community. As you can see up here, we're not all the same age or gender. So, you know, it's gonna be really important. But I really, you know, I think that strikes me the continued interest for Michael Sanchez, and so I would support his appointment at this time.
I can bring up one piece of personal history. When I first applied for planning commission, I was denied, so ended up here. Maybe this is
I would have to have to echo Juliana's comments. It's his second time he's thrown his hat in the ring. And that does kind of show fortitude. I don't know, guts, balls, whatever, craziness, whatever, but I'd have to, I'd have to second her nomination or
So do we have a motion?
So,
You
yeah,
second it?
I'll motion to appoint Michael Sanchez to the planning commission.
You're sure? Michael, you're sure?
Don't scramble away, Dan. All right, so is there any further discussion of this motion, or should I call it up? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? All right, thank
Lance,
you.
we appreciate you in 2 months.
Yeah.
You guys, both of you, please throw your hats back in there. We'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I
And
look
just-
forward to working with you.
And just to reiterate, this was to fill some shoes from Devin Warner. So Jen just mention her name again. So
Yes,
Thank
rest
you,
in
Devin.
peace. Yeah.
yep. And her term was going to end June of 24. So that's what that one
So
is.
it's basically a 2-year appointment.
So you're a 2-year appointment, Michael.
Okay.
Again, congratulations.
Yes. All right, let's
Thank
move into item B. Lease extension between city and Dunsmuir Parks and Recreation District.
Okay. All right. So we do have this. Don't let me forget about this. All right. So before the item tonight, or on the item tonight, sorry, Stephen, if you were going to come back in. Well, you can't hear me anymore, but I'll watch out. Stephen Cutting was trying to get on the Zoom. Okay, so Dunsmuir Parks and Rec, who are in the attendance tonight, they are requesting a lease extension. So their current lease agreement goes till 2043. Okay, and so they want to extend it to June 30th, 2048. So the background is the city of Dunsmuir entered into a lease agreement on December of '93. The district is leasing the area as the city ballpark, city park and related paths, grounds, play areas, the community center, and the storage garages northeast. So that's what the part of the Dunsmuir Rec District is leasing. Back in '03, they applied for a $220,000 grant, and that extended the lease to 2043. So that's what we're currently at right now. All right, so item 9 of the lease says the district shall have complete management control of the premises. Item 11, and these are of the lease itself, so found within the lease. Item 11 says the district agrees to, quote, maintain, clean, keep the premises, including all grounds and facilities located thereon in good order, condition, and repair at its sole cost. Okay, end parentheses. City staff has noticed, and citizen complaints have been received regarding the lack of the maintenance and the claims of disrepair and some failing conditions of the premises. So city manager, myself, and district manager, Mike Rodriguez, have discussed. We've met because I have actually drafted, in the past, I've drafted what's called a notice of default in performance. So if found within the lease, if leasee holds, if we deliver a notice of default in performance to the district, then they have 30 days to cure and correct. So I had that written, but I have not submitted it yet. Mike and I have met and discussed. Even since this time, there have been some improvements to the items that I had spelled out within my letter. Some have not, but a majority of them have been remedied even since the writing of this note. Okay, so the district through Prop 68 has been granted or allocated $177,000 in a non-competitive grant. So they would like to utilize those to repair the ballpark. For that project to be eligible, the district does need that lease to be extended to 2048. That's a requirement of the state of California, according to the Prop 68 granting funds. So that's what's being asked. That's the background. In terms of recommendations, I don't have a clear recommendation in my mind. So that's why I leave it to you guys to try and decide. I will say, so currently the premises could be considered not in good order, right? There are clear violations of the facilities at this moment. Volunteer groups have been vital to the upkeep and maintenance of the premises. City staff is stretched very thin. It would be very difficult for us to provide services in a manner that could remedy a lot of these.
Great, thank you, Blake. And I do believe we have in attendance some members of the Parks and Recreation Board, as well as the director. At some point, I think if you guys could come up, if council has any questions of Parks and Rec.
I really don't have, what are we doing here? It's a matter of extending this so they can get the money. Well, council should extend the lease so they can get the
So
money.
we're not in discussion,
We're
just
not in
clarifying
discussion,
questions
council
at this
discussion.
point.
Well, yeah, if you guys want to come up to the microphone.
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah, or you can do it as a group if council has any questions.
Yeah, I have with me tonight our board chairman, Alan McCarron, Will Newman, Rami White, I think Steve Cutting's on Zoom, and our maintenance supervisor, Dale Faulkner. Yeah, I'm here just to request your support for the extension for us to be able to finish that project and get the ball filled where it should be. Grant you, we've been shorthanded and short funds over the years. We're doing the best we can, but it'd be nice for us to collaborate with the city and get this project done. I know the lease probably needs to be reviewed. We really haven't sat down with the city as long as I've been here, over 30 years, so we really haven't sat down and redone that lease. I think we should do that. But it's important that we be able to get this lease extension so we don't lose the grant. The state has given us some time. I still have to sign the contract, and they're willing to work with us. They've been very cooperative. They understand that we're going through a transition with the city and upgrading some things, and they would like us to get it as soon as possible so we can start fulfilling our obligation and getting this project started. We got a lot of good volunteers right now. We have generated a good group of softball enthusiasts. They're going to come back, and we're going to have a big Railroad Day celebration this year. We just have a lot of good support. That has sparked. Matt asked me about the pool. It's another exciting news. We got 12 applicants. Applications have closed. We're going to try to open the pool a lot earlier this year. So the kids that I talked to today, they're at 8. They're at the high school at Dunsmuir. They are excited to give back to the community. The board is considering looking at wage increases, definitely changing the hours. So we're pretty much feeling pretty good about what's happening with the district, but we want to be able to fulfill our obligation with the state. So I don't know if Ellen wants to say anything. Will? These are 3 board members, and Steve's on Zoom, so.
Well, thank you guys for coming this evening.
Will Newman, 5701 Castle Avenue, number 2, Dunsmuir, 25-year, today, 25-year resident of Dunsmuir as of today. I still feel like a newcomer. I want to address very briefly the idea of things in disrepair. Is there anything in this city whose maintenance seems important but has had to be put off because of lack of funding? And I'm not asking for an answer. I'm asking for some introspection. The district has worked on I'm on the budget committee, and until very recently, we have worked on a very, very thin margin. So anyway, but mainly what I want to say is the necessity to extend at least 5 years in order to get monies from Prop 68 is vital. Failure to extend that lease is politically untenable. How would your electors feel if they knew we lost that money because the council was not prepared to extend the lease? Thank you.
Thank you. You guys can actually stay up here because I think there'll be questions.
I do have questions.
This is a question, not so much a presentation. In fact, if all the board members that are here could kind of come up, introduce each other, at this point, the reason why I'd like us to be here is to actually discuss, because we're intimately related with one another in that Parks and Recs leases most of their facilities from the city-owned property. The city also appoints 3 of the 5 members of the board, the county the other 2. And unfortunately, as I had a meeting with the chairwoman of your guys' board and Mike, and we kind of admitted this is the first time that anyone's heard of that we actually sat down and started talking about various perspectives on it. And that, you know, to Will's point earlier, yes, there's a number of items, almost anything in the city that was put into neglect by chronic mismanagement over the past decades. The current council, I just say this, my perspective at least, is incredibly committed to answering every challenge with how do we do it, not we can't afford to do it. And so it's more, I think we're interested in introducing that sort of mindset into the Parks and Rec as well. Granted, it's an uphill road. We can't snap our fingers and make it perfect overnight. We do appreciate the fact that you guys, as us, are all volunteers here, making the best decisions you can for our constituents. So, Councilwoman Gibson, you have a couple questions?
Yeah. Why did it take you so long to apply for this grant? This grant is the same one that we applied for Children's Park in 2019, and this program is closing in 2022, 2023. There was time over COVID to put together an application or list priorities for this. So I'm curious why it took you so long to the last minute to ask for an extension in the lease to do the necessary paperwork to do this.
I asked the city manager last October, because we had to get the application by the end of last December. And I asked the city manager in October if I could come and ask for extension before I submitted the application. He said the council pulled it from the agenda. And I haven't heard until recently that this is what we have to do.
So again, that's still 2 years after the grant opened and we were guaranteed per capita. We applied for it years before that, and you were made aware of that years before that. So I'm still not understanding why you waited so long to apply.
The board and I have discussed the project at that time. We were debating either the pool or the ballpark. So we've been having some discussion meetings over that time. I don't have a direct answer for you why we waited so long, but I know that we had until 2021 to get the application in. So we want to make sure that we're short-sighted on the pool or the ballpark. And so the board decided last year to go with the ballpark. The pool has always been our big community asset. We want to keep it that way. Everything is working good so far. Our next opportunity for grants will be Prop 68 and there are other options of grants, but those are very competitive. The one we have now is per capita. It's granted to the district because we're a district. So this is not competitive. This is pretty much because we're a district. So I am looking into the other grants for the other projects. But the board and I went back and forth about what do we need to do for the community, and we decided to go with the ballpark. I don't have an answer for you on Director why it waited so long. I don't know that we didn't put it on the back burner. We kept on discussing it, the pros and cons, asking people in the community, and we decided that it was time to make a commitment. So last summer we made a commitment, and I came before the city. At that time, like I said, it was pulled off the agenda out of council.
And in terms of the lease agreement, I mean, we've had this in place for a while, entering into it in 2003. Again, I understand we have short budgets and we're tight, But again, the city doesn't enter into projects that we know that we can't afford. And so I guess for my edification, I have received complaints to the quality of the parks and how they've been managed. How do you respond to people with that? And what are you doing to ensure that that doesn't continue to happen?
Well, first of all, I have not personally received any complaints about the parks, personally. I've heard it through second and third hand, but I have no problem hearing complaints, suggestions, recommendations at all. I have not heard anybody come to me directly and say, hey, your parks look terrible. I mean, they may say things and just say, yeah, your park needs to be cleaned up, so we do make efforts to clean it up. You know, we do make efforts to make it look presentable. Dale works hard, he's a one-man show. He mows, weed eats, takes care of the parks. We don't have a big staff, so we have to do the best we can. Grant you, the facilities are getting well used, they're getting a little bit older, but you know, we're gonna do the best we can until something happens. But, you know.
So in terms of new priority projects, how are you looking at those as we continue to move forward?
We're looking at that now. We're starting a process this past winter about priorities. So the board and I are going to be doing a complete priority list before July of what these projects are going to look like. Which ones are going to come up first? How can we improve on some of the smaller projects? You know, we don't have a park vehicle. That's not a big project, but it's something that we need to have. Right now, our maintenance guy using his own vehicle. I'm using my own vehicle. That isn't the best scenario, but we're doing it because that's part of our job. But as far as projects, yeah, we're looking at everything we're looking at. We're looking at everything that we got, the playgrounds, the restrooms in the city park, the gazebo, the amphitheater. We have talked about these things already.
So in terms of future projects, understanding that a lot of the big projects that have been accomplished to date, to improve them, it's done by volunteers. And we do actually have a request to the Community Promotions Fund from the softball volunteers for improvements as well. So how are you working with those groups in the future, and how does that request to the Community Promotions Fund work with this grant as well?
Well, the community grant that we're applying for is strictly for the pool. Every year we ask for money because that's what the tax was for when it first passed, was for the library and the pool. So we haven't gone out beyond that. But we do work closely with all these volunteers. Without them, we wouldn't be able to accomplish a lot ourselves. So this year we got a great support group of 4 or 5 guys that came to the park board meeting and said, hey, we want to help get this field ready.
So I'm not talking about the Parks and Rec request to community promotions. There's a request for the baseball field in the community promotions as well as this grant. So how do those interact?
This is the first I've heard about the softball coming to the city for money. I don't think they can because they're not an established group. If they do that, they're going to have to either form a nonprofit. I don't think any group would come to the city and ask for money as individuals.
Do you think it's an indicator that they're not getting support from you, so they're coming to us asking for these funds?
No, I feel very confident that the guys we're working with are very supportive of the board. They've met with us. I see them almost every week. I feel very confident that they want to be a player. I don't think they're asking because we're not doing it. We committed some money this past month to give them some extra funds. So I think it's an indication that they'd like to get some support from other avenues, but we're doing what we can with them, and I'm feeling pretty confident they're feeling pretty good about it. We're not denying anything that they're asking for. Dale's working on the irrigation. That's our contribution. We've got the lights fixed today with a couple electricians that came down and volunteered. And so it takes a lot of people to do these big projects. It's not that we're not able to do them. We're not able to do them on a timely fashion. We have to wait until we're able to get the resort or the resources. I don't want to do something and put it all on us if we can't do it.
So it kind of goes back to, again, that lease agreement. Why would you agree to do all these things in the lease agreement if you know that you're not capable of accomplishing them?
Well, right now, I would like to review the lease, in its entirety, because as long as I've been here, we have never sat with the council to review that lease. It's always been an amendment 2, 3, 4 to extend the lease. And I appreciate your interest on this. I have no problem sitting down with a committee to go over the lease with our district board, and if there's errors in there that we need to fix. I mean, people still don't understand that we manage the park facilities, but the city owns the property. You know, we get complaints that, from Children's Park. We don't own Children's Park. We get complaints that I get secondhand from Hedge Creek. We don't manage Hedge Creek. So anyway, it just needs more clarification and more teamwork, as far as my perspective, and I'd be willing to sit down with the city to address some of these things at a later date. I'm just here to ask for your support in that extension.
I have a kind of a question, just to put it in perspective, because I think I personally have no objection to you guys pursuing this grant. Would that we could have got the money earlier, but I definitely take very seriously the opportunity. I mean, that's a lot of money for any project in Dunsmuir, and it's very important. But here we have in this report that the last time it was extended was for a grant in 2003. How many grants have we received since 2003?
We have received, they've all been park grants, 2012 and 2014. And both those grants went to the pool. In 2012, we put a new pool liner in.
Right.
2014, we fixed some of the irrigation in the city park, did the bathrooms. Bathrooms need to be remodeled again. They're being more used. We're hooked up with the city sewer system, so we're on a septic down there. And that 2014 money went for a septic tank.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
As I'm sitting here listening to this, I get a sense that there's two different conversations or items to look at. One of them has to do with the simple matter of a lease extension, which I think, coming right down to it, all what I'll do. The other point is kind of an underlying sense that things are out of whack. And I do believe that a lot of that comes down to communication. And I'm asking you now then, are you, like you said, willing to sit down and maybe come up with a committee and work through this? Because I think that's the way to solve it.
I mean, I think, this is a whole new arena now with our board and the city. Every city council, every city manager, it's a different approach. And I'm encouraged that we want to address it from your side and our side, because these board members are committed and they want to see things work. But yeah, we have never had a joint meeting like today. This is kind of an unofficial joint meeting, but I like to get together with a committee and work with 2 members from the city, 2 members from the rec district board, and go through that lease. I mean, we have never gone through that lease point by point. It's always been the understanding that city owns the property, but you guys take care of it. Well, I get questions about, well, there's sidewalks around the fountain that are uneven. Peter mentioned that. And they come to us and I say, well, we'll try to address it. We'll sand it down. Somebody said, well, why don't you talk to the city? This is the city property. Well, I don't want to come to the city every time we have a big issue. I think I want to try to fix it if I can.
How about coming up with an annual or semi-annual report to the council that can let us know and we can track various items?
Yeah, I think, we can do that. I mean, I don't want to speak for Alan. Alan, you want to? Go ahead.
Well, when Mike and I met with Blake and, we did discuss, where the rec department would sit down, lay out what's going on, and then focus on the future and make plans in a forward fashion. It's never been a part of the Dunsmuir psyche to work with all of the different community groups with the city council. It's always been kind of a separate entity that did what they do, but you guys are willing to open it up. We're willing to be a part of all that. Report to the city council.
With that being said, well, I actually was excited by whoever took the initiative to do a visioning and planning exercise for your district.
I did.
I participated in it, and then I never heard anything.
Right.
Well, so where is that project? Yeah. We just got the results of that.
We got we got the results for our last board meeting, which entailed, and I'm having trouble with the exact numbers, but let's say 89 responses, raw data. My background is science, and I know the difference between raw data and data that you can use. So I have compiled about 2/3 of the written responses so that it is in a presentable manner, so that people can look at it and go, all right, there's 8 responses that relate to this, 10 that relate to that, as well as the numerical data being put into both averages and mode, so that, how people responded, how often do you visit the pool? You can look at all the numbers, or you can get an average or a mode. And so that's all been taken care of. It will be ready, because of my copious free time, by the next board meeting. I do want to say one thing. When you talk about maintenance of the park, that survey showed without any question that there was one item people wanted addressed. Anybody want to take a guess?
I'd rather see.
Ball field. The ball field. And we didn't even need to compile the data to see that. The ball field is the one thing that the respondents, we don't know whether they're residents or not, would like to see us do. There are some responses that said, take care of the city park. Take care of the children's park. There were several responses around that. There was one response, clean up the downtown Dunsmuir. So just so you understand, some of the respondents, I don't think, had a clear vision or a clear idea of what the rec district responsibilities are. But I'm sure as council people, you've had that same thing happen to you.
Oh.
But if you come to the meeting on whatever our next meeting is, Thursday, 14th, 2 days before my wife's birthday, you will have that data available to you.
And you'll post it on your website?
Yes.
Perhaps you could come and give us a presentation on what you've learned. I mean, again, what I'm trying to say is that it seems like the root of everything in this right now is that we haven't been communicating enough, and if we can communicate more going forward, I think that we can solve a lot of the problems, and so that's what I would recommend.
All right, I think rather than making that sort of thing piecemeal, I think it makes sense to establish I don't know if you could do it through motion or not, but establish a committee that will report to you as opposed to coming up here and reading. I think that a more formal way of doing it makes more sense than piecemeal.
Councilman Ar?
As I read the website, there are 6 members. And 3 are appointed by us, 2 by the county. So it's sort of in line with all of what I would call critical questioning. How is it possible? I agree with you. For the 15 years I've been up here, there is zero communication between the city and the district on the management of these assets. We're both trying to serve the community. And yet, even our own appointees, zero. You have your meetings and your agenda, we have ours, and it's really only appreciating the last 2 COVID years. What is the best use of the facilities we co-manage? What are the revenue expectations? What are the capital improvement needs? What are the short-term expenses? And I'm pretty close to the mostly Dunsmuir High School crowd that's doing the softball tournament, and it doesn't seem right to me that they're actually out there fixing the baseball field, and we're here talking about a grant to fix the baseball field.
Well, what they're doing is getting it playable and up to snuff for their tournament.
So we can,
They're totally dedicated on continuing this. And with the grant, that's when we'll be able to afford to get the restrooms fixed. And,
but my point is they're actually serving the community for this summer.
Oh,
making the
absolutely.
ballpark usable.
and we agree.
Wouldn't happen without it,
Well,
because you don't have.
we probably
the
would not have
funds.
had a tournament, which is something that even when I was a business owner here, I had a baseball team that we looked forward to every year during railroad days.
I think a lot
So-
of people do.
Yeah.
We want it back.
It's been a void, not having it.
Well,
has
that-
Been,
Right.
it's been noticed too, so what happened? Just
Uh-huh.
remember?
A lot of it has
There's
to do though with those people who were in charge of the city and the different groups through time, that it faded, it basically went away, but slowly we're bringing it back up. Because I was here in 78, 79, when railroad days was a 4-day big time. And, well, we called it river days then, until somebody drowned, but,
Oh, that sucks.
yeah.
If there
So,
is,
yeah, I'm more than willing to communicate and work together for the better
public
part
comment.
of
For point of
Dunsmuir.
order, I appreciate the conversation. I'd like to return to the item at hand, which is just the lease extension. I believe we're at clarifying questions.
We still are, but Councilman Kessler's been moving this time for some time.
Well, if there's still clarifying questions, but I mean, in the essence of time, like Bruce had said, and all parties now are in agreement to work together. This is a great day because
Right.
we became a family. As of today, we are a family.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, I make a motion that.
No,
Wait,
we
wait.
gotta go to
No,
public
you can't.
comment.
Public
Oh,
comment.
okay.
So if you have any more questions? for the
No,
board?
no, just,
Mike?
Just a quick comment. I mean, the last few managers I work with, I always get together with them. I always send them an invite to come to our board meetings. I thought that was the person that should be coming, and maybe I should send it to the mayor or whoever. But we like to include you guys, whatever we're doing. We ask for community members. We seldom get any more than 1 or 2 people. Even our county representative, I've sent him agendas, and he comes once in a great while too. So we're trying to reach out as best we can, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to collaborate and start with a new process. And, you know, I agree with Bruce, communicate. Matt, you got good idea. Julianne, I respect you for your comments. I think we just need to take a deep breath and say, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it together. That's my comment.
All right, well, thank you, Mike. Are there any further clarifying questions?
last comment is the taxes goes into the general fund, so it's not for a specific purpose. I just want to say that for legal purposes. It's not for any specific
one more
group.
thing.
Is there a clarifying
That,
question?
no, that man right there, Dale, he lives in McLeod. He works for Department of Recs, and he gives 210%.
We're
to-
clarifying questions. We have discussion after
time
public
for
I
comment.
just clarified that.
Any comment?
You guys?
Anyway, we got a good committed board, and they're all very helpful as far as me getting things done. But things take time, and we don't have a whole lot of it. I mean, I'm only here for a little while. So I'm trying to do the best I can, get them prepared for the future. And
I'm
this-
the newest board member, so I feel like but we all are here to help the community and help the families in the community. I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
That's very obvious. I can see in all of you that it's about the care for the community.
All right, thank you, guys. So you guys can go back to your seats. I really appreciate board attending. Now, if anyone from the public would like to come up and make public comment, please come to the podium. You'll be allotted 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, hit the raise your hand button. Don't see any, but we did receive a.
So I did receive a letter.
Yeah.
So if you want me to start the timer, all right. So ready for?
Stop with the comments.
Okay. My name is Allison Leszewski. I'm a resident of Dunsmuir. I would have liked to attend this meeting, but prior engagements have prevented this. Thank you for instead acknowledging my correspondence. I have worked closely as a citizen volunteer with the Dunsmuir Rec and Park District for the past year and a half, attending all of their board meetings during that time. more often than not as a presenter on an agenda item. In 2021, I raised nearly $5,000 in private donations and also wrote and received a grant through the McConnell Foundation for $27,000. This was all used to revitalize Towandali Park with a 23-panel interpretive self-guided tour and map, 6 new picnic tables, 4 benches, 2 bear-proof trash cans, and other upgrades. Soon after that, in collaboration with the California Wellness Foundation, I was able to secure another grant of $25,000 for the district. A large portion of these funds are currently being used to revitalize the baseball field for an upcoming Railroad Day softball tournament. In August 21, at a Dunsmuir Raccoon Park District Special Board meeting, I facilitated the beginning of a strategic planning process. This led to the design and implementation of a recent community survey for Dunsmuir citizens. The survey was an effort to engage the public as to what areas of strength and needs the district may have and ways they feel the district could improve. Valuable feedback resulted, and the district now has some guidance as to areas of need and focus. It is my hope that the district will take the feedback and create SMART, SMART, it's an acronym, goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I have provided the board with a template to form these goals and have also sent this demo to the council. The creation of SMART goals provides accountability, transparency, and direction. I remain extremely concerned with the state of the district, particularly in past performance, is indicative of the future. Similar concern has also been expressed by other citizens in the survey results. Though volunteer work has taken the district far from Towandali improvements and baseball field renovations, the district is ultimately responsible for the progress and maintenance and funding. I'm further concerned with the lack of opportunity for youth in Dunsmuir, and I feel the district has a tremendous amount of potential to support the needs of Dunsmuir kids. I ask council to hold the district accountable for the following bullet points: a commitment to grant writing opportunities.
You're speaking too quickly.
He has to do it in the 3 minutes for public comment, but she sent
You
that to
got a
us in
copy
an
of it?
email.
I can't understand what you're saying. That's my problem. So if
Okay.
you can read a little more clearly and slowly.
Okay, should I start as the bullet points? Go back a paragraph?
The writer was asking the council to do something.
Yes, so right where you were at.
Okay, I asked the council to hold the district accountable for the following:
Thank you.
a commitment to grant writing opportunities, a detailed maintenance plan for Towandali Park and other facilities, increased pool season, and then side parallels, several days a week for many hours, early June to late August. That's for the pool. Recreational classes, i.e. fitness, martial arts, yoga, ceramics, etc. Advances in technology, professional development and leadership opportunities that have a direct impact on Dunsmuir and whose impact is measurable. Refer to SMART goals. And there's a few more bullet points, but.
All right. Well, thank you, Blake, for reading that remote public comment. In the meantime, if anyone has any public comments that they'd like to share before I close this item.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm going to close public comment for the evening. Councilman Deutsch.
Just a quick thing. I just think that we have a choice as to how we'd like to implement this. It would be on one hand a committee or another liaison, but one way or the other, I think having somebody from the council attend the meetings like I do with the chamber is a way to develop that communication flow.
Or at the same time.
I would agree, but I would ask that we ask the Parks and Rec Board to select a member to attend our meetings and update.
No, I mean the other way around, is to have somebody from the council attend their meetings.
We hold our meetings the same times, the same days. First and second Thursday of the month, just like us. I mean, first and third, just like us.
Here's the second.
There's the second Thursday?
One week a month.
So again, that can be a conversation
Okay.
as we
Get
move
another
forward,
agenda,
but
yeah.
going back to the item at hand, I asked the questions that I asked because I'm not happy with the service, and I've had other people tell me they're not happy with the service. And in going back to the conversations when I was first on the council and became mayor, I met with you, I met with Mike, and had explained some of the concerns we had over the pool, losing money every year, talking about what the Parks District is doing. The city does offer some funding through the promotions funding through that granting project. You've been approached by a number of volunteer organizations, and I've received word from some of them that you're not as supportive or responsive to them, and that's the concern. For me, I understand you coming up here, and I want to kind of point out, for the last 4 to 8 years, this council has been dealing with the inactivity of previous councils. We have had to deal with financial issues. We've had to deal with the airport. We've had to deal with a number of other pieces of infrastructure that have been historically failing because we, as Mr. Arth likes to say, kicked the can down the road. The reason why I take such a stance with the Parks District is I have tried to talk to Mike, you know, in my capacity as mayor with the previous city manager, and received very little feedback and very little support. You know, parks are really important to me. That's why I'm keeping an eye on the Mossbury Falls Trail project and helping with that. I've worked with SORA, the Siskiyou Outdoor Recreation Alliance, who have put in for community promotions funding to provide support for Hedge Creek. You know, again, parks and recreation are very important to us, but we do need that communication. And so I'm very happy that we're going to move in that direction. But I do want to clear up the fact that there was no inactivity in the last 4 years. I did try for 2 years as mayor. I did. And I believe when you even came here during COVID, I asked you, what are you doing for visioning in 2020? And you said nothing. And so we shut down the parks. We didn't have the service there. The maintenance fell by the wayside. And what did we do during those years? So that's why I'm harsh. And I understand that there is room for growth. And I'm saying these things because, again, don't point the finger completely at the city council for not talking to you. We need to all take responsibilities for what our previous boards have done. We need to take responsibility of that and move forward in a positive manner. So that's why I'm a little fired up about this one. It's something that has been talked to me by a number of people. I appreciate that you're volunteers. I appreciate and understand the fact that you are doing the best you can with a very slim budget. But waiting for the last minute to apply for grants or not coming to us to have a discussion about how the city and the Parks District can talk about a property assessment tax that can better fund you. You know, that's what we need to start having conversations about. And I hope that's what we move forward with. So I'm happy to support extending the lease for the 3 years, I believe, to the 2048 requested date. So you can go for that OGLS grant. But please understand that I really am frustrated with this relationship. And I'm frustrated that it's coming up now that we haven't talked about it, because I have tried. And so that is my point. I am supportive of this going forward, but I'm also very supportive to improving our relationship and the maintenance of the parks. Thank you.
I agree with pretty much everything that my colleague, Councilmember Lucchese, has said on this issue. And I consider this last minute request to extend the lease as a gun to the head. That is, if we don't say yes, then you don't get the state grant and everybody loses. So we get that. We have a staff who says, legitimately questions, why should we enter a new lease with the district? Because you're not keeping the facilities in good shape. We have a letter all ready to go, but not sent, giving you 30 days to cure and correct a bunch of deficiencies. So I'm not the least bit interested in sending one of us to your meetings. I'm interested in the district starting to convince us. I'm a short timer. I'll be done. You won't have to worry about me anymore toward the end of the year. But I do think we're a reviving community with expectations, and the vibe of just not talking to each other, how has that worked for us? Not all that well. So I am in favor of the district doing something close to what our staff recommends, which is either you give us a correction plan or the support and these good feelings are going to dissipate pretty quickly. So all I'm in favor of is extending the lease at this point.
All right, thank you, Councilman. All right.
I move to extend the lease and authorize city manager to execute the amendment number 3.
I second.
All right, Motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the motion at hand?
I do. Would you entertain adding to your motion that we also request, at least in the next 4 months, a maintenance plan on how they plan to cure and correct? I think 4 months is a generous time to give them to look at their visioning, to prioritize.
I would, but wouldn't that actually be a better as a second motion?
If you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I'd welcome that motion, but I just think clarity's sake, we'll just go with the first one, if that's okay.
Okay.
Dave, you want a second?
He did.
I did second.
Yeah, he
good.
did.
So there you go.
All right, motion
So
and a
if you
second.
want to make that as a second motion, I will second it.
Well, let's clear the first one first.
All right, well, if we're gonna have that motion. I don't need to make my comments. They were along the same lines. All right,
So wait, real quick, the motion is
to
Just
extend the
to
lease
extend the lease.
till, for 5 years.
via
To
Amendment
the
3.
requested 6/30/2048.
40.
Beautiful.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
I make a motion to request that the Parks and Recreation District return to the city council in no more than 4 months with a cure and correct maintenance plan to meet the current lease agreement.
I'll second that.
I just want to comment on that. I'd be supportive of it, but I think that rather than this being a 4-month deadline to do a bunch of huge heavy lifting, I'd almost be in favor of coming back in a month's time with some sort of accountability plan with more dates within it. Maybe working with city staff on what the infractions are of the lease specifically. And we could do a short workshop meeting so that we don't lose sight of it. And I'd love to do, it's good for us to integrate it into this meeting, but maybe we'll put it early in like a 15-minute with your board and all of us. We can do back and forth to discuss that if everyone's okay with that procedure.
I think a month may be a little bit too short,
Yeah, I was
because I
gonna
do
say,
want to
we
give
got-
them time for their visioning. So I would
4 months.
entertain amending my motion to say, to make a motion for the Dunsmuir Parks and Recreation District to return to the city council in 2 months with dates and strategies on how they wish to pursue the cure and correct options.
And the motion is fine and I will second it, but obviously the other dot we need to connect. And you're not in our meetings, but in our meetings, we've seen a lot of Allison over the last year. And every time she reports another grant that she has secured, we all get up and say, that's fantastic, way to go. But as a younger member of the community, I totally support her visioning, strategic planning. Let's not look in the rearview mirror. Let's look to the future. Thank you. And the city will support you.
Excuse me.
Dave, are you okay with
I
the
need
amended
air.
motion?
Yes. There is a water bottle right there. Maybe it's
My
unopened.
water's empty.
Oh,
I
we got
know.
another
You want to
one.
grab that?
Are
Yeah.
you okay with seconding the amended motion to bring it back in 2 months?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so Dave's got the second.
With a second by Dave.
Okay, I got that.
All right, any discussion of the motion at hand? All right. All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Parks and Rec Board.
Thank you.
We
for all
appreciate
you
you
do. I
guys.
appreciate the
Options.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Drive safe home, Dale.
Bye, Linda.
All right, we're moving into item C.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
well, our unofficial clock says it's almost 7, but in fact, it's almost 8.
It's after 8.
And the first response when I took our city planning off the consent agenda, knowing that Rico is not with us,
I can roll us through it. It's actually a really
Yeah.
important document that we do have to approve today.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of moving item number F up. And the other items, I believe, are all information only, so I'd also be happy to entertain tabling those to the future meeting.
Well, with everyone's permission, I want to move forward with the general policy that if we can't finish the meeting by 8:30 to adjourn it at 8. I think we can do it in the next 30 minutes. So
Yeah, we can.
let's move item F up and deal with the general plan. I'm sorry for people who've been waiting for other items.
I move, do we have to move on canceling, tabling those three? I move we table items C, D, and E.
Let's see how far we get.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll through this. All right, so the State of California Office of Planning and Research and the California Department of Housing and Community Development. So you'll hear me say OPR and HCD. Those are two different entities that require each city and county that has a general plan to report on an annual basis. The information that we report to them is the goals, policies, implementation measures within the general plan that the city has attempted to work towards, because it is our guiding planning document. Rico does an excellent job starting on page 9, lining out all of the different code sections that we have to abide by and all the different information we have to present them. I'm not going to go over a lot of this because it's all just reiterating what's in our current plan, not necessarily what we have achieved. And Rico did an excellent job of summarizing what we've been working on in terms of general plan updates needed, which is on page 22, that we are all working towards to make sure that we are all in state compliance. So going into the one that I believe that Councilmember Arth had pulled this for, which is the housing numbers, which starts on page 18 of the packet. So the city participates in what's called a Regional Housing Needs Assessment, also called ARENA. That is a state mandated assessment for each county. So the county is assessed and it looks at projections for population. It looks at the current makeup of the city. It looks at current housing stock numbers, which is why we update our housing elements on a much more frequent basis. And so within the ARENA numbers, the state goes, you are assigned, Siskiyou County, this many housing units within each sector. So we have extremely low income, very low income, moderate, and above moderate. So extremely low income are those who are only making about $12,000 a year. Typically, I'm going to jog the numbers because it's different for each city. Very low is typically anywhere from $12,001 to about $15,000 to $16,000. Low income is about $16,000 to about $24,000. Actually, ours might be a little bit higher than that, but that's basically the different demographic groups we're doing. Moderate is a much larger piece of the pie. Most of us within this board will probably sit in the moderate income. And then above moderate is typically people who make like $80,000 to $90,000 more a year per household. And so our RENA, we are currently in what's called the Cycle 5 RENA, which actually expires this year. So Rico's working on our housing element update, and we were assigned our new numbers for the RENA Cycle 6. So what we are reporting this year is our RENA Cycle 9, which actually has concluded. So this is closed. We can't work on these numbers anymore, and that's okay. They are not legally binding numbers. They are projections that HCD thinks you need to make. So what we look at for those is they go back through population projections for 2011 through 2019. So that was kind of our planning period we're coming out of for our Cycle 5. And so the population projections were coming off of some of the recession, which gave us a little bit wonkier projections. So those population projections are coming from the California Department of Finance, which looks at everyone's taxes, births, deaths, things like that, and gives us the best estimation to what they think we need to hit. So nobody in Siskiyou County hit their Cycle 5. Nobody got anywhere close. Mount Shasta, I think, got a total of 12 above income units for their Cycle 5. They got no low, no very low, no extremely low. And that's very typical for every other city in Siskiyou County. So, actually, page 19, Rico was really great and put actually what our income limits are for the different groups. So we did not make our numbers. That is okay. And actually the numbers that we did make, which the numbers are presented on page 26 of your packet, which is none. We had no new housing this year. That's very typical. City of Wairika had 3, and they were all in the above moderate income. They were like $250,000 house, $1 million houses. One is like $1.5 million. And so, yeah, nobody meets these numbers right now. So going into RENA Cycle 6, we've kind of gone the opposite direction. So we were given a very large slice of the pie last time, Siskiyou County. We now have a very tiny slice of the pie. So our numbers for the next 8 years are two units. one in the very low and one in the low income.
A clarification real quick,
Yeah.
is the one time I participated in stuff relating to this was for our housing element public meeting a long time ago.
Yeah.
About 3 or 4 years ago, which would have been like Rico's first month, so maybe
Yeah.
3 years ago. He seemed to say it was the number of increased units you were zoned for. Is that what this is, or is this actually built online?
They're dual, so they go together. So you have to, per state statute, you have to provide enough zoning in your city to provide for those units you're assigned. So we are in compliance with our zoning code, but it doesn't mean we need to achieve those numbers because there are so many other factors to the housing environment that we can't control. So for example, supply chain costs, supply chain delays. And that's actually what we saw this year. So a lot of houses were not built this year because of the lumber industry increasing. And by the way, it's not the number of housing permits given, it's the number of housing permits completed that gets reported.
Well, we have economics against us where we could zone to infinity. We could go up to, 300 units per acre, but it's not economically feasible without intense subsidies to do any of this construction.
Correct. So a lot of the way they do this makes sense for some of the metropolitan areas like Sandag, which is the Sacramento area, San Diego metropolitan areas. It makes more sense for their planning to do that. So it is very normal that we didn't hit this number. It is very normal we did not have any housing built. It is the same for a lot of other places. And again, some of that is due to the supply chain issues we've experienced in the last year. Going forward, though, we are only assigned 2 units. I don't necessarily agree with that with the state, but now what the state is starting to move towards is if you don't meet your RENA numbers, we will fine you. They have not done that before, so I am not arguing with the 2 units because 2 units is easy for us to make in 8 years, and then that means we don't get fined. But what we can do is, as Rico is updating our housing element, we can set our own guides for us and say, we do want to focus on low income still. We do believe we need more of it. And so we can do that within that planning sphere. So, but what we do have to do today is by April 1st, every year we have to approve this resolution and send this to the state. We do have a 30-day grace period, which most of us fit into. I did not get Wairika's through till like right at the 1st. So it is okay, we are not in trouble, but we do have to approve this tonight to communicate this to the state. So it's a communication tool. It's not a stick. It's not gonna beat us. We don't have any code issues with it. But yeah.
All right, any clarifying questions?
I gotta admit, that was pretty good.
This is
That
my
was,
job.
Juliana, the way you ran that down was phenomenal.
I just did
Thank you.
Wairika's, so yeah.
Councilman Art?
Well, the reason I pick on Juliana is she had the fortitude
There you go.
as a city planner for the city of Mount Shasta to actually deal with the dynamics of what's going on in southern Siskiyou County, and obviously raised quite a ruckus with the notion we might be zoning single family for higher density, we might be building more of this neighborhood or that neighborhood, but it doesn't, I have a fair number of friends that are low income or very low income, and they're getting ready to leave Dunsmuir because there's absolutely no place they can afford to stay. I have a number of business tenants that cannot hire workers because there's no place for the workers to live. I disagree with my colleague that there's nothing we can do about licensure of short-term rentals. Any number of communities are saying no more. Until we can meet the needs of our community and the locals that live there, we're not doing any more licenses. So what we are reporting, if you look at page 26, as Juliana pointed out, is zeros. For the reporting period of 2021, it's all zeros for any kind of permits, structure types, streamlining provisions, and the percentages. Yes, we do the worst, like Wairika, for very low income people. We're below 40% of what we're, so I don't take this as the state having an idle discussion with all of the communities where they shovel money to increase our housing in affordable levels. To me, this is another deferred item where it's never been important in Dunsmuir. Now it's important. And, simply saying, okay, we're good, doesn't do anything for me at all. So I think, I'll be gone soon enough. But in our visioning and planning exercise, I hope we listen to the people that say the vitality of our community is at risk unless we figure out our housing stock.
And I will add to that, we do have Rico working on updating that housing element that will reflect a lot of that too.
And I know, we voted several times on zoning changes, but what we're telling the state is we're not getting it done up here.
Well, if we have the will, we could come back and talk about it in another agenda, another meeting. Talk about the idea of limiting or stopping new Airbnbs.
Well, we do have that item coming to us in a couple of months. I think I remember.
We're gonna do a first year review.
Yeah, we were doing a first year review. We can move that up, but again, we are gonna have Rico come back with a housing element. So I think.
Yeah, it's all integrated with
Yeah,
that.
so part of that housing element, you are required to have a housing needs assessment, which includes a lot of really good data on what is currently happening in the market and then what our projections are for the future. So I think once we get that document, or at least an administrative draft of that, I think that will lend itself to the conversation that we're having. So for example, within that document, you're going to get an affordability index. So for example, for Wairika, we have Plan West working on it, and I just reviewed it. To afford a median priced home in Wairika, you have to make a household income of $110,000 a year. The median income for Wairika is $41,000. That is a huge gap, and it has just exploded in 1 year. So there's going to be a lot of really good data like that that's going to go into talking about housing, because like you said, it's a very complex thing. It's not just short-term rental capping. It's also looking at, what are the restrictions that we have in government? Is it a zoning code update where we have better form? There's a lot of things that go into it that will be analyzed and that give us a better idea.
The greatest issues is I know we all think our houses are expensive here, but things in Dunsmuir go for well over 100 square foot less than the cost of new construction. Yeah. So if you wonder why things aren't building, it's because it's never expensive. More affordable to build than to buy it. So it's ironic, you'd actually have to have our real estate values go up much higher before you'd see an incentive to build, which of course is counterproductive for low-income units. So
if we only had somebody that took houses and fixed them up.
Well, if we had more people that did that.
But on that point, there are entrepreneurs besides myself and several others that would jump at the chance to take an empty or abandoned residential building in the city of Dunsmuir and rehabilitate it, because the costs of a rehabilitation of a motel or an existing building is a fraction of starting fresh.
Is there any grant money to help?
Of course.
Build projects?
I comment on Peter's statement, because I talked to a lot of people on trying to bring capital into this town. And the missing piece for the last couple of decades, I think, really has been coherent messaging and really selling. The capital is out there. It just isn't set up to go to small towns like ours. It takes an individual act of convincing people to take a chance on us.
So I think the biggest thing that this highlights, because we're technically in clarifying questions.
Sorry.
I support your motion.
Yeah, so do you want to open for public comment? And then I have one suggestion, and then we can.
All right, I will now open this topic to public comment, the general plan.
Annual progress.
Annual progress.
Anybody out there is still alive?
If you guys would like to come to the podium. All right, seeing none, I'll now close public comment. Councilwoman Case.
My suggestion is we'll probably just ask Rico where he's at in the schedule for the housing element update, because it's great to have this conversation. I think it highlights a need, but I think waiting for the appropriate time during that process where we have a good amount of information that we can look at and have some suggestions from him. There is a ton of money for housing. There is a literal 11 by 17 spreadsheet that HCD puts out with funding for any type of housing, from extremely low income to workforce housing to senior living to, but the hard part is grants are not free money. These grants take a lot of effort to apply for, and you typically need a nonprofit housing developer or a private housing developer to partner with, because again, the city does not have the expertise and the ability to develop. We have the ability to assist, we have the ability to open up incentives, but it's going to need a ecosystem of players to be able to do this. So if we do have private interest, getting those people's contact information now is important, so that when we do get ready for those, we can apply for them. But they are continually opening and closing, so there is no rush to apply for them. And the state of California recognizes the housing crisis, and they will continue to have housing dollars available. So before we jump into a grant or jump into a project, I think getting that data and finding where we're gonna be best using our current resources is gonna be important, because again, we are short-staffed. So let's not tell Blake to go on a housing hunt while we're still trying to fill positions.
I keep, every time I drive by the house of glass, I think if we could find a way to turn those into apartments. with-
Hotel conversions are really big right now.
But thankfully, I mean, it's slow progress, but that's actually being worked on. It's not.
But is he, I thought he was working on it to do it like a motel.
Well, anything, Bruce. I mean, it's, you know.
But I'm just saying, if we had housing, if you imagine all the apartments that would all of a sudden.
Well,
Yeah.
Exhibit A is the Travelers Hotel.
Yeah. So, motion to approve resolution 2022-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dunsmuir, accepting the 2021 General Plan Annual Progress Report and approving transmittal of the report to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously. All right, for our three remaining items, Blake, if you want to give us a brief overview of each, as they're informational only, if anything's important.
Yeah.
And for any members of the audience, these are informational only, so there isn't going to be a public comment period.
There's no action.
There's no action involved, but if you have any input or whatever, you can certainly catch me or any of my colleagues afterwards to discuss, or come back at the next meeting in the general public comment as well. I don't mean to cut you off, but we'll not be opening these ones because they're informational only. Take it away, Blake.
Okay, good. So the first one is the Butterfly Bridge project. Kind of came up last time. So Caltrans does these bridge inspections. They have inspected Butterfly Bridge. They inspect all of our bridges. In a long time ago, they've done some of the inspections, and it's found a scour issue, which I looked up. Scour, it is when water flows against a substance and that substance starts to flake away.
Would that be the 50 or the 100-year test? 50.
Ooh, thank you, Mr. Contractor person. So the main article that I want to point everybody to, if they have questions for Butterfly Bridge and the reasons why it may or may not need replacement, is there was a feasibility study done, and I have it. I can post it anywhere or get anybody copies. It was done in August of 2016. It goes through a whole slew of different options for either replacement or repair. So just, that's the best document I can give out. And so the conclusion of that feasibility study was to replace. So that's how we are going forward with it.
Well, with that in mind, the request was that if we do have to replace, we take into consideration a design that keeps the same aesthetic, right?
Yes, and so the highway bridge program through Caltrans, we've applied for it. We've gotten the grant to do the design. Jacobs is the engineering firm doing the design, and their current design right now is basically the exact same thing, just a little bit wider.
So the people that came to us before, we can assure them that we're taking it into consideration.
Exactly, yeah, aesthetics. Yeah.
People are attached to the look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, there was,
Sentimental.
I guess that was a meeting you weren't at.
Dude,
Oh, maybe you missed that meeting, yeah.
They want to continue to have the same aesthetic.
They want to have that same bridge.
Nobody likes change, you know, so a little town we like the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, as long as they're doing it.
There was supposed to be somebody that was supposed to ramrod that bridge replacement back in 16, and we didn't qualify, and they picked it up, and there was 4. They were doing 3 and they picked up ours. And we were working with, I can't remember.
But the county took over.
But
Yeah.
then something happened and they dropped it, they didn't get something, so none of it got done, and here we are, still waiting on, and it still doesn't pass the scour test, so, yeah.
All right, well, cool. So it's moving forward. Is construction this year?
No.
No.
Church will probably be next summer, if that.
Okay.
We're coming down to a crossroads, we'll call it, over tracks. And like how to work with getting a temporary, because to temporary crossings, railroad, UP, we got UP, we have Caltrans, we have, what's the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission? It's a whole junction of, yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully
Yep.
the bridge over Hedge Creek goes smoother when that arrives.
Over Hedge Creek, or for Hedge Creek Falls?
Yeah, or over the Zach.
That's gonna be a
For
cool
Mossbury.
bridge for Mossbury Falls.
Yeah.
That's a neat design.
Yeah,
All right,
it's gonna have to be flown in by helicopter.
all right, on to the next.
Vacant distressed building ordinance. This is just let you all know that we've sent out letters to every every property owner within the historic district. So there was, I forget, 60 something or other.
I think you
Letter.
skipped one, but we can go there.
Vacant and distressed before historic.
Yeah, vacant distressed building.
Vacant and distressed building ordinance, we have sent out, so ordinance 9.14 deals with the vacant or abandoned and distressed real property. So owners of these properties shall register, they need to register and pay a $500 fee. So then we've had approximately 10 of those people have registered, so we've gotten that.
What was the total number that we were looking to get registered?
I don't have specifics on that, but it's in the like 20s that we've identified potentially. And we have sent out some violations now at this point.
Is it just absentee owner
guess it said that.
issues? Or just people, has it been
Some
more
are-
absentee owner, or do you feel it's more people just saying, no, I don't want to do it?
Both.
Okay, like 50-50?
Yeah, 50-50.
We're approaching the point where there'll be appeals before council.
Right, yeah, potentially. Yeah, there's definitely one that's in the works that I've seen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, anyway.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe has a question.
Yeah, Peter.
Well, too, I mean, and I notice the city of Mount Shasta on first reading unanimously passed the vacant and abandoned building ordinance. Looks just like weed, looks just like Dunsmuir. And I think, to me, we fought very hard for a full-time compliance officer. And I think the number was 23. They were divided into residential and commercial. So what is the timeline for everyone to comply?
So everyone should be compliant.
Everybody
by
should be
now,
complied by now,
But
right?
there are some people who are dragging their feet.
Exactly.
So we'll have to go through code enforcement to deal with those people.
Well,
And so our next steps is to do violations. That's a $100 violation. And then after that, we can ratchet the violations up
200.
according to a certain schedule that's in our ordinance, right? So it's 200
It's
then?
actually a government code section that we follow.
Yeah.
So then, when it comes to the next step of inspections, is it, once they've registered, time allowing, they inspect with the city for the?
Exactly. And there's no necessarily requirement to inspect, but the registration says that city is allowed to go in and inspect. So as the registration allows that
So
allows
there's
us
10
to
that are
go in there.
eligible for inspections currently. 3.
There, yep.
So in terms of a code enforcement thing, so if people continue to violate, so the first offense is $100 for the offense within 1 calendar year, $200 for the second offense, and $500 subsequently after that. And you can basically do $500 for every offense afterwards. What ends up happening is you start building up this bill of violation and fines through the administrative record. And then you can then start to pursue receivership arguments and liens onto the property, which then you can then argue that they're absentee, they're not in compliance. And so then we have a better legal argument to go forward with.
Hopefully
other
they get into
measures.
compliance in full.
Right.
Yeah.
My concern is that we have an absolute level playing field. This whole program won't work
Yes.
if 10 comply and 13 don't. why are you coming after me? You're not going after her.
But I think what he's saying is they are, so they
Yeah.
are gonna start doing the fines, and once we do the fines, so it's a long game.
I foresee council having to hold this up in the appeals in the not so distant future.
My last question is on fiscal impact. I'm going to actually read these things. Fiscal impact, none. Budgeted item, no. Obviously, this is going to cost the city. It's a potential source of revenue. It's a potential source of enforcement costs. So this doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I could try and look into it further.
So I think again, we hadn't done the project yet, and so going into the 2022, 2024 budgeting period, we would take that into account and know some estimations on what we can expect.
Exactly, right now that we know if there are 23 properties that should get registered, 23 times 500, put that in the budget. What is the cost to inspect it? Put that in the budget and we're good to go. Yes.
Well, that was the whole reason for coming up with the cost, was to handle the management aspect of it, right?
Well,
As well as say that in order to get out of having to register and pay $500, you can do such and such to have your building not be abandoned or distressed.
Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the historic district.
And I will say one inspection was actually done since the staff report was created.
Excellent.
And I think more are scheduled. I'm pretty sure Mark's been in contact to get inspections done. All right, historic district, back to that one now, sorry. So we sent letters out to all the property owners within the historic district. And so now we're gonna go around and we'll try and spot individual things according to 17.28.160, which is reasonable maintenance of historic structures. And if you look at that code, it does specify things like, what's the fun word we always like to use? Filigree of the building, right? Yeah, so we need to look at that and make sure that all the filigree is accurate or appropriately maintained. But anyway, there's lots of things in there. So we will be doing the visual inspections, mostly. It's all going to be visual inspections and say, now it's time to comply according to the code. But we haven't done those. We've just sent out the initial letters at this point for the entire property because it's been kind of lost in the weeds we don't want to just jump on people to say, hey, fix this. We got to say, okay, here's the ordinance. Please read it, reference it. We will be coming out.
Right on.
Thank you.
Any questions? Councilman Art?
Well, question one is, how come I didn't get one?
Yeah.
You did get one.
I didn't. If you put one in my box.
I'll put one in your box. It might have been sent to Bombs Away. Is that a PO box?
Down at the end of the street. It's my home address.
Yeah.
When did you send the letters?
Last week?
Oh, yeah, so you might not.
Week and a half
Yeah.
ago? No, I feel like,
Expect it to
no,
arrive.
some people have referenced them.
And for this effort, again, level playing field, is it gonna be alphabetical? Is it gonna be over 2 months? How are you gonna do this?
Oh, in looking, yeah, I start here at City Hall. We'll walk that way, we'll walk that way, we'll walk and just compile and then send the letters out.
And just to complete the loop, the library isn't gonna pass,
I know,
No,
I know,
which is
Yeah.
why I wanted to
I
and
know.
that's
put
us.
money in because it's terrible.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well,
4 minutes.
Do we have any future agenda items? There's certainly a number of them coming up.
Yeah, we've been working on, I think we'll probably have some information on the city manager search to share at the next meeting. The PLHA, Permanent Local Housing Assistance.
I do have a surprise coming up for next meeting that you will enjoy very much.
I have something like.
Is it food?
No, it's even better.
Councilmember Roth has a question.
Councilman Art.
I would, for the curbs and the sidewalks, ask that you, Mr. Mayor, work with the city manager and our public works director and bring back no later than 60 days, at least a plan for walking the downtown area, finding obvious areas of high liability and figuring out what to do about it. The tree thing, it really isn't on the property owner 100%. And Mr. Juarez and I, we own quite a bit of sidewalk. Nobody comes and talks to us. I had to file a complaint when the tree was heaving up the sidewalk I put in front of Pops. And with Randy Johnson, we worked it out. But the city pretty much paid for the removal of the tree, the stump grinding, et cetera, and so on.
Well, you spent 10 grand on bricks to fix the sidewalk, but it was
40.
only 40. It was only, you know,
So I think, yeah, we have the LTC meeting next week, which we'll talk about STIP funding, which is usually what funds that.
And we
and what
have
can
So that-
expect.
a citizens group that's emailed all of us regarding the downtown tank relocation and the runoff, presenting their thoughts on it, if they have some information for us from the staff.
I know.
I haven't even liked to look at.
surprising.
No.
They emailed,
Surprise is
they didn't
pleasant.
email me.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that ain't a surprise.
I've got an item I'd like to present. I'll admit it's a personal item at the moment for me, but I think it really raises a whole item for the whole city. I was one of the people who had a tree that was declared dead by the power company, and they showed up yesterday and took it down.
They've
And
been
I'm
doing a
sure there
lot
are
of
other
work.
people in the same situation. So what I'd like to look at is the idea that as part of the green waste process, we make on a once a year, twice a year, the chipper available to go around to people who have branches and things. It's one thing to take your refuse like that to the dump, but when you have a whole tree's worth of branches, it would
You
be
need
a
a
lot
dumpster.
better, be a lot better to chip it. So I'd like to bring that up as a possible
And they're like, here
use.
you go.
Yeah, I think Deepak
Anybody
is
need
working on
firewood? Come see
something.
Bruce.
Yeah, we can check in.
You know, 10 wood. All right.
Just left in his yard. There you
well,
go.
If that's all,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right,
Third,
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes
Thank
unanimously.
you. Wairika's city council meeting on
Thanks
Tuesday.
all.
And if you guys have any comments relative to, I'm more than happy to
Oh,
talk.
yeah, they're mad.
You're going to, where is it, Montague? Montague?
I am not, I am
Oh,
not.
come
I am
on,
not going to
Juliana.
have to-
Montague, baby.
You right?
I don't, it depends on whether you decide. All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's why I was a little late, because I was in HR doing interviews about that.
Mr. Bailey? Pretty good, sir.